So to me, if you're taking your books and records to have someone prepare your taxes, they're not going to have time to go in and do a full audit scope on your financial statements. But at the end of the day, you're signing off on a tax return that everything's accurate and complete. And so, if you have third parties that are looking at the data, like a lender, or maybe you're looking at selling your business down the road, we want to make sure that that data is accurate.
This is the Asset Protection Show. Expert strategies by attorney John Skabelund.
Welcome to the Asset Protection Show, the podcast dedicated to not only protecting your assets from lawsuits and creditors, but also protecting your legacy. After all, what we do isn't just for ourselves, but to create generational wealth. I'm your host, John Skabelund. Discover how bookkeeping is essential to asset protection and how to determine the best bookkeeping system for you. Before we begin, let me just remind my audience why bookkeeping is so important for asset protection. It's one thing to build an asset protection plan, everyone, but you have to maintain the plan, and that is why bookkeeping is so important. It's going to help you maintain the business formalities that must be observed, because that's what we're doing. We're creating businesses that we expect the judge to honor and recognize. A good bookkeeper is going to help you avoid commingling of funds between your entities unless there's a business contract that provides for those funds to be transferred. Further, there's a common attack that plaintiffs will use. It's called the alter ego theory that says, Judge, the defendant has been using this LLC as their own personal piggy bank from the get-go. And what a good bookkeeper is going to do is prevent business funds from being used for non-business activities. As an aside, having been a prior merger and acquisition attorney, having sold and purchased businesses for clients over the years, I can tell you that one of the best ways to create value in your business when you go to sell is to have meticulously clean books. So with that said, I'm very excited to talk about this topic, and with none other than my good friend Bryan Nelson. Bryan Nelson is an IRS enrolled agent with over 25 years of experience preparing thousands of tax returns for individuals, partnerships, and S corporations. He's the founder of Nelson Business Advisors, a tax strategy firm dedicated to helping entrepreneurs reduce taxes and build wealth legally and proactively. After repeatedly seeing clients struggle with messy books, Bryan launched Real Accounting, a full-service bookkeeping firm designed to bridge the gap between bookkeeping and tax strategy. He helps clients make better decisions year-round, not just at tax time. Now, Bryan, you service clients in all 50 states, and you're based in southern Utah. I know you're a proud husband and father of 4, but I understand that you recently completed your first marathon.
Yeah, I did. So during tax season, we seem to put on a few extra pounds, when we're just sitting in a chair all day long and sometimes not eating the best because we're in a hurry, so we eat fast foods a lot. So yeah, at the end of tax season, notice the pounds are starting to grow on the belly and the waist. So I decided to start training for a marathon. And at first, I was just hoping just to complete the marathon because it's 26.2 miles. But I ended up doing pretty good on my time that I was super surprised with. So yeah, I think it's great for our industries, probably yours as well, of getting out and getting a little bit of exercise and staying healthy so that we can perform better at our jobs.
Absolutely. And again, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Well, let's just jump in. What options do business owners and real estate investors have for their bookkeeping needs?
Yeah, a lot of it, I don't think, a lot of times clients don't really understand what it really entails to have good bookkeeping systems in place. So when I meet with new clients and I kind of talk to them about systems and what we do, they seem a little bit confused, like no one's ever told them what they need to do. And so, yeah, it's definitely knowing that you got to keep really good books and records, not only for financial statements, but also for tax returns and other areas of their businesses.
Now, over the years in working with clients, I have seen the tried and true to old paper forms. I've seen Excel. I know that there's software and advanced accounting systems. But what's your opinion? How does someone know what is the best option for them for their particular needs?
Yeah, great question. I think it's always good to reach out to someone that does bookkeeping and have them really have that conversation with you, because not all businesses are the exact same in nature or in size of business. And so a lot of our small business clients that we typically we like to use a QuickBooks product, whether it's desktop, an enterprise, but we really like the online version where clients can have access to the data on their end and we can have access to that data on our end. And it's easy to have, a quick call just like this, and we can share the screen and go over the data together and review the data. So to me, kind of the gold standard right now is still QuickBooks Online. But when people try to use it themselves, like I have a client that's in real estate, and QuickBooks can sometimes just have general accounts where they might want to look at something that's more industry specific, like a Stessa, something that's more engaged with property management on their rental properties. But we can always customize our QuickBooks Online to match kind of what Stessa is doing too. So we really like to just have one platform that we use so that all clients are on the same software, so we don't have to go and learn multiple softwares. We can just kind of keep our time focused on one software.
Now, I can imagine it could be challenging for clients to learn how to use QuickBooks. So do you offer any kind of training?
Yes, we can do training. So, it's just you can book some time with us. We can show you. And what's cool with technology now is if a lot of our clients have questions in a certain area, I can just go in and record a video. And then that way they have that video recording that they can reference back to as they're doing their bookkeeping as well. So, yeah, we always like to answer questions, make sure that they're doing things right, because it's all about consistency. And we want to make sure that consistency is doing it the right way and not the wrong way.
Well, I should back up and make sure that the audience understands what is bookkeeping and how is it different than being working with an accountant. So how would you explain that? What's the difference there, Bryan?
Yeah, working with an accountant, we go to school to be accountants and we get to learn our debits and our credits, and not always the most fun for people that just want to run their businesses and make money. But bookkeeping is where we keep really good records. We call it books and records. So we want to measure our income coming in. We want to measure our money going out. And depending on how we categorize things, it could be placed on a profit and loss statement or it could be placed on a balance sheet. And so getting the clients to understand how the two financial statements work together is sometimes a challenge. But at the end of the day, the accounting is to measure the success of your business. Are you making money? Are we losing money? Where are areas that we can look at to maybe save money and areas that we can spend additional money to make more money?
Another way of looking at this, perhaps, Bryan, is that bookkeeping helps you keep track of the money and the expenses, the income, etc., but the accountant is actually helping you gauge the health of your business or real estate.
Exactly. Yeah, and sometimes it depends on the level of bookkeeper that you have. Some of them may be experienced in just getting the data into your QuickBooks software, but it might not be categorized 100% correctly. So a lot of times in real estate, you might book it as repairs, but it needs to be on the balance sheet as an improvement. And so there's a lot of times where things like that can be missed that could show that you're losing more money than you actually are. And so we want to make sure that everything's booked correctly on that end.
And why is it important that everything is booked correctly?
Yeah, so to me, if you're taking your books and records to have someone prepare your taxes, they're not going to have time to go in and do a full audit scope on your financial statements. But at the end of the day, you're signing off on a tax return that everything's accurate and complete. And so, if you have third parties that are looking at the data, like a lender, or maybe you're looking at selling your business down the road, we want to make sure that that data is accurate.
So when does someone know that they need a professional bookkeeper versus just doing it on their own?
Yeah, and I think that's where we can come into play. So, we prepare thousands of tax returns. And so when we're looking at people's books and records, I think there's times where, you might just need to reach out to your tax preparer and say, hey, is there a way that we can do monthly or quarterly check-ins to make sure that my data is up to date? And when you start to have those frequent communications with your professionals, you'll start to understand that usually at the beginning, you need to get that put into place. We're talking about on your end, the asset protection side, commingling and all that. I think right off the bat, if we're making mistakes on that, it could blow up your entity structures that you put into place right off the bat.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of people out there that will offer a package or a service that would meet your needs. But to me, I think it's important right off the start so that you have accurate data from the beginning and you don't have to go back and correct, stuff that's maybe 1 year, 2 years back.
So how does a person determine whether a bookkeeper is a good fit for them?
Yeah, sometimes they may not know, and we see that a lot, right? And so I think as you are looking for professionals, like someone like yourself, you're going to make sure that you vet the bookkeepers on your end, that they know what they're doing. And so to me, it's you kind of get what you pay for. There's good, better, and best. There's a lot of people that advertise bookkeeping services, start a business in 2 weeks. That person might not be as qualified as someone that's been doing it for 20 years like myself. And so I really think you got to ask those questions. What's your experience? What's your experience in this industry? And have them go through the numbers with you. If they can't talk you through a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet, then they might not be the right person for you.
So does the bookkeeper need to be local, or is there any advantage or disadvantage to that?
Yeah, that's what's cool with technology these days is we have clients, like you mentioned in the introduction, we have clients, pretty much in every state in the U.S. And so you can find a local bookkeeper if you need to for a face-to-face, but now with technology, it's easy for us to hop on a Zoom call. We can share screen, we can talk just like this remotely. And so, yeah, anymore, you don't have to be face-to-face in your town. You can look outside and look for the best that you can find out in the United States.
Okay. And can you help the audience know what is kind of a typical fee or pricing for a bookkeeper? What can they expect?
Yeah, so pricing can kind of vary, based on what you need. We always look at, what's the frequency that you want to talk to your bookkeeper? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Is it annually? But what I would say is you want to really dial in on that conversation and be engaged. You don't want to just hand it off to a bookkeeper and never know what they're doing for you. Are they providing reports? Are they giving you advice on your books and records? And so we can look at it. We can say, hey, we can go into your bank statements, your credit card statements, and see how many transactions you're going through each month, and then maybe set $1 to it. Maybe it's $1.50, $2.50 per transaction. But it'll come down to frequency, how much work's involved, and what you need. If you start getting into accounts receivable and accounts payable, we see a lot of errors on the bookkeeping side on that side. Or maybe you need someone to help you collect money and pay bills. So it kind of depends on what you need as far as bookkeeping. But for the most part, I feel like you can find a reasonable median between, not paying too much, not paying too little, but just right there in the middle, but having good services.
And you raise a great point there, Brian. What are a variety of services that a bookkeeper can offer? You were just mentioning maybe even paying bills. I think a lot of my clients would love having almost a virtual family office in the sense that someone could do more than just give them reports. What are some of the services a bookkeeper can provide?
Oh, yeah. So, number one, it's going to be, linking your bank accounts to the QuickBooks Online, pulling in bank statements, credit card statements, and doing monthly reconciliations on that side. A lot of people don't even know what a reconciliation is, but what a reconciliation is actually going through your bank statement and your QuickBooks file and making sure every transaction is accounted for. I know towards year end, American Express, their credit cards, they updated their system so a lot of data wasn't pulling across. And so if you don't go in and do that reconciliation, you might have missed thousands of dollars in tax deductions because the transactions weren't pulling through. So on our reconciliations, we're going to make sure every dollar is accounted for, matching your system and the statements. And then, there's accounts receivable, there's accounts payable, there's maybe sales tax that needs to be paid. So there's a lot of different areas inside the financial statements that need a lot of focus on a daily, if not weekly, monthly basis.
Okay. And then how does a bookkeeper work or help the client's tax preparer? What does that relationship look like between the tax preparer, accountant, CPA, enrolled agent, and the bookkeeper?
Yeah, so the bookkeeper is really key. We look at everything as a team. You're kind of the sole focus. Then you have your bookkeepers, you have your CPAs and your EAs and your attorney. And we want to work as a team, and it's what we found the most successful. And so if that bookkeeper isn't having those communications, even the CPA needs to make sure that the bookkeeper is performing that data and it's accurate. Because there's definitely low quality and high quality when those financial statements come to do a tax return on our end. And so if the financials aren't a high quality, great statement at year end, then we have to go back and take time to make those corrections. And so we always like if that bookkeeper, even if they're doing the work, making sure that it's kind of signed off by that CPA, someone that has a degree or a license that can make sure that the financial statements are accurate.
And I guess that leads me to the question, Bryan, have you ever worked with clients in the preparing of their tax returns or even tax strategy, but have noticed that they really need a bookkeeper or the bookkeeper that they have is not very good? What does that look like to you?
I'd almost say a high 90% the financial statements aren't ready to prepare a tax return. And so that's why we started Real Accounting, is because we noticed that we know our clients need more attention on the bookkeeping side throughout the year and not just at year end. And so that's part of the reason why I grew out my beard, is because, you see those memes online where it's like you have a really old person in the meme and it says, I'm feeling great, I'm 25 years old. But it's like, that's almost a feeling when bad financials come in. It just creates so much stress, because if you look at tax season now, we're January 28th right now as of this recording, and tax documents aren't even into clients as of yet. And so tax season is getting shorter and shorter every year. And so if you don't have good books and records, it's almost like an automatic extension, because the tax season is so short now. And you don't want someone that's just going to rush through your tax return if the data's not right, because you could be missing thousands of deductions and, or overpaying in taxes because you didn't categorize things correctly.
I'm just thinking here, Bryan, I would think not only could you be missing out on valuable deductions and expenses, but doesn't it also make the tax preparation more affordable if the CPA or tax advisor is not having to go through and comb through all the records that they otherwise would?
Yeah, so when I look at it, I feel like myself, I should be making, right around $600 an hour during tax season. And, if I have to slow down and do bookkeeping, you're paying me at a $600 an hour rate versus maybe something that you could get for $85 an hour in the off season. And so if the tax preparer is doing it, he's billing at a way higher rate. So your tax cost is definitely going to be higher than if you just paid a bookkeeper to have it done throughout the year and provide it to them ready to go with the tax preparation. So it saves the tax preparer stress, time, and helps them be efficient to help other clients and make sure that everyone's getting their work handled.
Now, I know that some tax firms offer audit defense from the IRS only if they provide the bookkeeping. Do you mind explaining to the audience why they would require such that they do the bookkeeping in order to do audit defense?
Yeah, you have to remember at the end of the day, your tax preparers have licenses as well. And so they don't want to be signing off something that they can't trust the data on when they're signing off on tax returns or even financial statements. And so you could be putting not only yourself in jeopardy, but also your preparer in jeopardy. A lot of people don't know that on a tax return, preparers can be fined hundreds of dollars in mistakes in certain areas of a tax return if it's prepared wrong. And plus, you may also have what they call an accuracy-related penalty, which would be 20% of the tax. And so you really want to make sure that your tax preparer feels confident signing off on that information, because like I think we talked earlier, is they may be providing that tax return to a banker or maybe a business broker on the sale of the business. And so we got to make sure that the data is correct.
Now, I've met with a couple of clients recently. They have several properties and they are doing their own bookkeeping old school fashion. And the wife clearly recognizes that she's not doing it right. But when I described the need for a bookkeeper and how a bookkeeper would help her, obviously she was nervous, as you can imagine, about getting started, what that learning curve looks like. Just can you describe to the audience how easy it is to onboard and transition to a professional bookkeeper?
Oh yeah, it's super easy. So when I see people kind of do their own, I see that they miss thousands of dollars in deductions because they kind of just when they go to do their taxes, I kind of feel like it's the top five that they'll pick up. Maybe an HOA fee, their mortgage interest, your property taxes, your insurance, and then maybe your accountant. But they don't know how to keep track of all the other data that they could be writing off. And a lot of times it's just those big items that they know about. And so as far as onboarding, it's super easy. Maybe like a 15-minute discovery call with someone like us. And then we just kind of talk, hey, where are you at right now? And then it's just kind of having that agreement on a price and what we're going to do. And then really all we have to do is just get you on a QuickBooks Online subscription, connect your bank feeds, and then we're in the game and we're pulling in the data and we're keeping track of the numbers for you.
I'm sure part of the nervousness is that if they recognize they may not have been doing it right, having you go back and having to look at what they've done in years past. Is that a common issue? And if so, how painful is that?
It's more painful on our end than I think it would be on the client's end because things have already been filed. But as professional tax preparers, we want to make sure data is accurate. Like we have debt basis, we have stock basis, and things that could prevent losses from flowing across to the tax return. And so it's always hard to go back because I don't know about you, but I probably forgot what I had for breakfast this morning already, right? And so to have to go back 2 years, 3 years, it's super hard to go back that far. But the cool thing is with softwares, you can get it to where you could provide a CSV file from your bank as far back as they'll produce the data. And you can take that data and convert it right into a QuickBooks Online software pretty easy.
That's great. And I assume it's possible to amend a return if you find that after reviewing prior year's tax returns that there was some money left on the table.
Yeah, so when we look at tax returns, you can typically go back 3 years and get back any past refunds. But you also want to make sure, I think I was looking at some case law that's coming in that before the IRS would maybe only go back 3 to 6 years. But if we ever get into that state of fraud, they can go back indefinitely on tax returns. But yeah, typically we want to look 3 years back because if we can get you more money back into your pocket, we definitely want to get that money back into your pocket,
No, this has been great. Any other advice to our audience about the need for bookkeeping, how to do it, how to find the right person, and why it's important?
Yeah, you could always go online. YouTube's an amazing tool anymore. You could go on and search bookkeeping videos. The thing that I find is you're going to spend 10,000 hours researching something that's not going to get you anywhere. And so what I would do is, go to someone like John that has a referral database of bookkeepers that he knows on his end are going to be able to help you. And then just have that phone call. It's a 15-minute discovery call and see if that bookkeeper can help you. But I highly recommend it just because we see so many people that, have incomplete, inaccurate tax returns. We're starting to see more and more people wanting to sell business or even buy a business. And so I've had clients buy businesses, this year that were $1 million businesses, and it took time for us to go through bad financial data to really make sure it's a good deal. And so it's super simple to get a bookkeeper, have someone else on your team that's going to look at those numbers and help you, save taxes and build your wealth as well. And have John to make sure that you protect it.
No, I appreciate that, Bryan. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we wrap up today?
Yeah, just this week I sent in you a referral. I met with a new client, and knowing John has put me on a whole nother level in my business as well, because I looked at a tax return and saw 50 rental properties, basically in one LLC, which causes a lot of danger. So even myself wants to network with professionals that make me better and then makes the client better, because it's all about, growing your wealth and not losing it overnight, the way I look at it.
Right. No, I appreciate that, Bryan. Thank you so much today. Well, in conclusion, everyone, well-maintained financial records are not only important for an IRS audit defense, but also for asset protection. You must avoid improperly commingling funds between your entities, like I mentioned earlier. A good bookkeeper like Bryan is going to help you do just that. If you own multiple properties or businesses, you should seriously consider a bookkeeper. Not only will you know it's being done right, but it's going to save you time, which honestly is your most important and valuable asset. How can my audience reach out to you and contact you if they'd like to learn more information?
Yeah, it's super easy. So you can just go to our website. It's realaccountingteam.com. And so inside there, you can reach out to us, especially if you wanted to get a quote for bookkeeping. So we're here to help you guys out. It's something that we are truly passionate about and excited to work with new clients.
With that, we'll wrap up today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. My goal with this podcast is to give you great, actionable content that empowers you to protect the assets you've worked so hard to build. To help me do that, I would love to hear from you. What topics are on your mind? Do you have any questions about today's topics in regards to bookkeeping? Are there specific strategies or legal questions you want me to cover? Please leave a comment and let me know. If you have found today's information valuable, please consider sharing this episode with someone who might also benefit. Word of mouth is the best way for this show to grow. Finally, if you have a moment, leaving a quick rating and review on your favorite podcast app would be a huge help. It only takes a minute, and it makes a real difference in helping others find the show so that they too can learn from an asset protection attorney about how to protect their assets and preserve their legacy. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay protected.
You've been listening to the Asset Protection Show, expert strategies by attorney John Skabelund. For more information, go to assetprotectionshow.com.
This content is legal information only and not legal advice. Viewing this content does not create an attorney-client relationship. Mr. Skabelund is admitted to practice law in Arizona, and he may be reached at ultimateassetprotection.com.